maybe you have seen the video when I removed this choke, my homemade choke from my Hexbeam antenna tower. Well, I decided to replace this choke by the new one which I purchased from Vimo, and well, later on I found that this new choke and this replacement has not been really good decision. The SWR is higher right now on the buns, and well, yeah, the main problem of this homemade choke, and one of the reasons that I removed this choke from my tower, was that the maximum power limit of this homemade choke is pretty low, and it is very risky to use it at 1 kW power. But recently I decided that I am not going to buy 1 kW amplifier any soon, and therefore I decided to remake this homemade choke, and I decided to put this choke up there or back on the Hexbeam antenna. Well, I will also leave the new choke from Vimo up there, and I just add this homemade choke between the Hexbeam antenna and the new choke from Vimo. Actually, I will be using two chokes in serial. Alright, maybe you are interested in how this homemade choke looks like after 2 years on the tower. As you can see, I had to clean it a little bit because it was pretty dirty. I removed some dirt. You can see also some remnants there. It's not 100% clean, but it doesn't matter. I will replace also the box, because I decided to remake it. So I will use the only toroid core as an original part of this homemade choke. The other parts like connectors, coaxial cable and SO239 socket, everything will be new, even this backside of the box. But if you are interested how it looks like inside, here it is. You can see that even when this box or enclosure is waterproofed, you can see a seal here all around the corners. You can see pretty much corrosion inside due to the high humidity inside. The problem is that I drilled actually 2 ventilation holes into this enclosure, but my fault, my mistake was that when I was sealing this socket with this self-vulcanizing tape, I actually covered these 2 holes, and ventilation airflow has stopped, and the air pressure and every other aspects actually created a water here inside, and that caused this corrosion on a nut and so on. And therefore I will rather to remove all these things out from the box and will remake it back again. So let me do this, and later on put this homemade RF choke back onto my tower behind the Hexbeam. And here you can pretty see how much corrosion is in there. You can see these 2 pretty well corroded screws actually are holding the back mounting side of the box They are pretty corroded. So rusty. Wow. After 2 years, guys. So that is something. It is even here. Everything is pretty messy. Wow. I collected the new components for my choke, and over here you can see the old components. And the only thing what I will need is this toroid core. The new box or enclosure for my RF choke has been finally finished. You can see on the bottom the SO239 and ventilation openings. On the back side you can see my mounting system, and on top there is transition for RG58 coaxial cable from the Hexbeam antenna inside the box. This transition is waterproof. So, also the cover is sealed. You can see the seal around the edges of the cover. And the final thing what I need to make is this most important part. This is this toroid core and the choke itself. As you can see that the cable is pretty much corroded, dirty, and therefore I need to rewind the toroid again. I have already prepared a new coaxial cable for it, and of course new PL259 connector with Teflon insulation inside, so that should be higher quality connector. Well, I stopped at turn number 8, which is right here. Here is the turn number 9. The turn number 9 should be lined across the toroid core, as you can see. So from one side to another. And here will be the beginning of the second portion of the choke. Also important thing is that you should leave the cable not very tighten to the toroid core, otherwise you could damage the interior of this coaxial cable, and of course the choke will not working properly. So leave a little bit space and not tighten too much, not bend this coaxial with great force. I have currently 17 turns, and as you can see there is no much space for more than one extra turn. So I am finishing with the last one, and actually this is turn number 18. And of course it is good if you secure the last turn with the tape like this. And again, the turns should be not very tightened. As you can see, I can freely move with them, and that's fine. Again, don't tighten too much also with this tape. Okay, so I think that it was pretty simple and easy to make this choke. It's made of the RG58 coaxial cable. You will need about 1.5 meter long RG58 coaxial cable. It is only 5 millimeter thick, so you can make 18 turns of this cable onto a 250 to 43 type toroid core. Also, it is very important you do not tighten too much the coaxial cable when you are wrapping these turns. Also, you shouldn't bend it too much to don't damage this coaxial cable. When you will fixing coaxial cable to the toroid core, be careful you not tighten too much, and also on the other side. 1.5 meter long coaxial cable gives you also some reserve to cut the cable and to size actually you need for your own project. So the last thing what I need to do is to insert this toroid core into my new enclosure, and after that I will mount the PL259 connector. On the second side I have to solder to the SO239 socket. It is very important to seal the end of coaxial cable, especially when you are going to solder it to the SO239 connector, as there will be definitely some water vapor, as you had seen on the beginning of the video. I decided to use this self-vulcanizing tape to protect the end against the water, which could insert into the braid of coaxial cable and then cause some oxidation, which is of course not good. I used this tape up to the very end of this braid, right to the point where is a solder on it. So now I'm ready to connect and solder this end of coaxial cable to the SO239 connector. Well, the worst part of it has been finished. I just soldered the braid and the center of the coaxial cable to the SO239. Next is the PL259 connector. A protection heat shrink I'm using here has a glue inside to protect this against the water. Here you can see a glue which is in the heat ring. After I hit it, the heat ring, the glue is trying to getting off, and at the same time it actually seal the coaxial cable against the water. And the same thing is happening right here on the upper side. And PL259 connector is finished. Of course, on the tower I will cover all this stuff with these self-vulcanizing tape. Final conclusion: this is my finished new RF choke for my Hexbeam antenna. PL259 connector with Teflon inside, and also protected against the water with this heat ring and the glue inside. Transition also waterproof. You can see the choke itself, 18 turns on toroid 250 43 material. You need 1.5 meter long coaxial cable RG58. You can see that I also sealed this area around the SO239 socket against the water getting inside the coaxial cable or possibly to the connector. SO239 socket on the bottom, and also ventilation openings. On the back side mounting system, I'm going to use the tapes to mount this to the mast or center hub of my Hexbeam antenna. Also the cover is sealed against the water. Actually, all this stuff, when I connect to the Hexbeam antenna, will be covered by the self-vulcanizing tape. It will be a double protection against the water. So let me put this thing on my antenna in series with these Vimo choke, new Vimo choke, what I have already on my Hexbeam tower. So finally my Hexbeam is down again, and I'm going to put this new choke right there on my antenna. Also, I will leave the new choke from Vimo, and I will using two chokes in a series. So I need to uncover this self-vulcanizing tape first, and I need to slide this new choke from Vimo a little bit down, and then mount this new choke on that place. So let's go. I just finished the choke installation onto the Hexbeam antenna. You can see that it's completely covered by the self-vulcanizing tape, as well this top part of the choke, and also the bottom is completely covered by it. You can see ventilation openings there. I used 4 or 5 ties, and then is this second choke from Vimo, and it is going down to rotator. In general, after the choke installation, the SWR is slightly better on all bands, especially on 6-meter band, where is the difference most significant. So thank you very much guys for watching this video. I hope that you enjoy this content, and if you like, please don't forget to hit the like button. Hope to see you in my next video. 73.